It's all about the economy today with the mid-year budget update being released by the government. Joining us live now is Evan Lucas from InvestSMART. Evan, thank you for your time. Now, headline figure doesn't look too great that this budget surplus is down $2 billion on what was projected, but we are still talking about a $5 billion surplus.
We are, and I think that's probably what you're going to want to hear from the government in terms of what they're looking at. It's also the other thing that I'll probably highlight too is that they remain probably prudent with regards to how they're managing the economy, and that also needs to be put out there. Then you've actually got to look at the downgrades inside it. Yes, you've talked about the slashing that they've done to their overall expectation of the budget, but it's their expectations for 1920, 2021 that has someone like me really sitting up and going, wow, we are possibly seeing the forecast for what is going to be one of the slowest growth periods since the GFC. And that has to be clearly put out there. The fact they've downgraded GDP to 2.25% on a nominal basis, you're probably arguing that we're touching recession is one way to look at that. The non-mining investment space is what really caught my attention. So their expectations for that has gone from 5.5 down to 2. The great hope of the RBA since the mining boom has been that non-mining investment would pick up the slack as it slowed. It has never come, and that expectation of 2020, 2021, and that number I quoted, shows very clearly no one expects it to come. And that therefore puts pressure on wages, it puts pressure on jobs, and that clearly was also in that expectation as well, that you saw a tick up in expectations of unemployment, you saw a tick down of wages increases. All of that spells why a lot of people are probably looking at the results, not from the actual headline figures, but the projections as being a real concern in 2020 and what it will mean probably more likely in 2021 when it starts to really hit home.
Now, you touched on wages there. That is one of the key issues that Labor's focused in on in particular. You're right that it is revised down slightly. The argument from the government is that Matthias Cormann has said real wages are up and that the difference between inflation figures and wage rise is actually doing okay compared to certainly what you would have expected from Labor. Do you reckon that's a bit of spin, or is that pretty on the money?
Yeah, look, he's right, and that's the thing. So you can't argue that. He is right when you get to that technicality level. So that's the other way to look at this, is that he is technically right in terms of the real overall perception. The other thing that when wages get sort of reported, particularly in things like economic numbers and budget support numbers, they get done on the idea that it does not include bonuses. Now, bonuses are and have been on the up. Now, that is also something that's an interesting one, because the other argument to it is that bonuses are discretionary. Therefore, they're not set. They are not locked in stone. And if we do get a year like what's being forecasted, that bonus increase will not come through next year. So that's the other way to look at it. I'd also probably put a caveat in there. They've given themselves buffers with estimates around things, again, like what they've been doing for the last 2 years. The net export side, which has been a massive increaser for GDP. It's been a massive booster for the budget. They remain and have held their line around iron ore intake at $55 a tonne. It's currently averaging 90, and that needs to also probably be factored in, that they will, again, have that ability to put through technicalities that show the budget is in a better position. But if you look at the thing that matters, and that's what the question is, wages, employment growth, they are very, very sluggish, and there is no way you can sort of spin that in any other form, and even the government admits that it is going to slow down.
If we look at unemployment, which you've mentioned there as well, that's another key issue that really hits people at their own hip pocket, obviously. So if we're looking at these projections of 5.25%, that is up just 0.25% in the next year. If we are dealing with those global headwinds, as you say, is that not weathering the storm well, or do you think that there's more the government could be doing to fix that figure?
Oh, yeah. So this is the $100 million question for next year. And that this will be the other part of this, is that unemployment, though, if you have a look at it for the last 4 years, is down. So, 4 years ago it was at 6. We're now down to sort of 5.1. It's likely to tick up to about 5.25%, as you just alluded to. We are weathering okay. The fact that on Friday the phase 1 side of the US-China trade war has come off probably helps us as well, with China probably now slightly looking to stimulate themselves a little bit further to meet their obligations. It's a beautiful piece of political spin. I can't deny that from what's coming out of Washington. That's one side of it. I think you've also looked at it from the point of view that there is rainy day sort of movement here. The RBA is the other side of this. Is they are likely to continue to stimulate into 2020 to reach and make sure they get towards their numbers. They actually need unemployment to be down at 4.5%, and they expect unemployment to be at 4.75% by this time next year. So to reach their mandates, they're a long way away. So to manage that question, to manage the slowness that's happening in the global economy, monetary policy is likely to come through. The government will continue to argue that they are managing things well enough. They'll also therefore argue that they're bringing forward infrastructure, which doesn't fall into this. It doesn't fall into the budget. Infrastructure spending and that debt side of the equation of fiscal policy isn't in the actual, the current accounts. And that's probably the other side of this, is where the argument will come from the government, that they're bringing forward their $100 billion spend on infrastructure to help stimulate the economy that way.
Evan Lucas, thank you for your time on a big day of my info.
Thank you.